Welcome back to the Owner Operator Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Gray. We talk on this show all about owning and operating small service-based businesses that serve local communities. In this episode, I'm hosting Julius Mary once again. Julius is a pressure washing entrepreneur, but he also hangs Christmas lights whenever Christmas time rolls around. So in this episode, we're going to dive into how he generated $60K in 1 month hanging Christmas lights. So I hope you stick around for the whole episode. Julius is awesome with starting businesses from the ground up. If you haven't checked out his first episode, go back and listen to that episode. It's called How to Start a Pressure Washing Business with Julius Mary. And if you like these episodes, if you're listening on YouTube, would you mind to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel? If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please like, follow, and just like creating a service-based business locally, 5-star reviews are super important. Could you take 30 seconds right now and leave us a 5-star review on this podcast? We would greatly appreciate you for it. Finally, this episode is brought to you by OWNR OPS. OWNR OPS, simply put, is an online hub specifically for service-based business owners. We share resources. We have a private Slack channel with other service-based business owners where you can connect with each other, share best practices, help each other grow. Go check it out. That's ownerops.com, OWNROPS.com. And without further ado, let's jump into the episode with Julius. This episode of the Owner Ops Podcast is going to be how to start a Christmas light business. Julius, how do you start a Christmas light business?
Well, pretty much you just got to watch some YouTube videos, buy some lights, and start installing them. That's exactly what we did.
Pay you for a course?
Pay me for a course.
$1,000 right now.
I don't have any paid courses right now, but maybe in the future. But yeah, in theory, it's a pretty simple business. You're putting up Christmas lights for people. You're doing the maintenance, and then you're taking them down and storing them. In theory, it sounds very easy, and it is for the most part, but it's pretty complicated. If you're coming from, a washing background where you're doing pressure washing or landscaping, where it's pretty straightforward in terms of the sales process, quoting, actually doing the work, you'll realize quickly that Christmas lighting is a little bit more involved and a little more complicated in the sense that you're going to get requests for all different types of things. The work is a little tougher and it's a little bit more sketchy. So there's jobs that you can't always do based on, the roof shingles are tile, so you can't really clip your lights to them. So you got to glue them or something. It's all these little annoying things that you got to kind of work around and start figuring out, but you figure it out as you go. And then you'll also start to realize that your conversion rates are going to be pretty low for this business model if you're charging as you should be charging. But that's the thing. Most people don't understand how much the service actually costs, being that you got the cost of the lights that you're paying for. And if you're doing a leasing model where you're putting up the lights, doing the maintenance, taking them down, and then storing them after, you have costs associated with all those things, especially if you have guys that you're paying in labor costs and all that kind of stuff. So all that needs to be worked into that initial price so then people get these prices for $15,000, $2,000, $3,000 for putting up Christmas lights, and they're like, what the actual fuck is this? So it's one of those things there's a little bit more to it, but we could dive more into that as we get into it. I don't want to just go on a rant here, but
yeah, let's start with pricing. So how do you price Christmas light jobs?
So it's pretty much by the foot. For roof lines, gutter lines, all that kind of stuff. It's anywhere from $8 to $12 per foot. Some people in some markets are charging 6 to 8. We're in the range of 7 to, now we're in the range of 7 to 10. We were initially charging 9 to 12, and that was just, it wasn't really converting too well. And even have been all over the pricing spectrum this year, but it seems like if we want to land at least a few jobs, it's like we got to stay in that like 8 to 9 range. And then you got other things. So like we start to get a little more tricky for like wreaths and stuff. If you want to do wreaths, it could be a couple $100s to hang a wreath. We don't really hang too many wreaths because that brings in a whole other side of liability if you're drilling into someone's house or there's not a pre-drilled hole already or somewhere to hang the wreath already. So we try to stay away from that. Then you got trees and stuff, like all that. It's kind of just based on like, what kind of lights you're going to use to wrap the trees. We use minis, so we only do like small trees and small bushes, so we don't get too complicated with it. We don't have any lifts or anything. So I know one of the companies in my area, they have a lift on hand, so they're able to do like massive trees. But, when you're doing trees like that, it's going to be a couple grand per tree. So that's another thing that's just like insane.
Okay, how many feet is just an average job?
The average job is typically like 100 to 150 feet of lights.
And that's what, like a 2,000 to 2,500 square foot home?
Yeah, depending on, it's probably like, closer to like a 3,000 square foot home, but depending on like if you're going to do the sides, the ridge, there's like dormers and things like that. So it kind of varies depending on what they want done. And
okay, so 100 to $150, 100 to 150 feet. Is that right?
Yeah. So our average job last year was just over $1,500.
Okay.
And I checked this year. So for our returning customers coming back from last year, we gave them a 10% discount because basically the cost of the lights is about 10% of like around that area, 10% of what we're charging in the top line revenue. So once we already like cut the lights and have them fitted to their house, we come back next year if they want to come back next year. We have the lights for them, so there's pretty much no maintenance costs or material costs associated with the job second year around. Maybe a few bulbs went out, we got to replace those, but those are like a couple cents each, and that's pretty much it. You got your gas, but those are all like pretty much just going to be operating expenses, like your monthly operating expenses are going to be your main cost for year two. So it's almost 100%. Well, not 100% because you got labor costs and all that, but in terms of like the actual gross profit on the job, it will be close to like probably 90% second year round. So then we offer a 10% discount. So with the 10% discount this year, with 23 returning customers from last year and all the customers we've added this year, we're at $1,490 for average job size this year. So still in that like $1,500 range.
$1,490 at 23 customers.
Right now we're at like 40.
So what are you going to do revenue-wise just with this service?
We'll probably do around 65 to 70 this year. I had the hopes, the goals of doing 100,000 this year in lights, but I kind of I forgot how grueling this shit can be. We've had a lot of back end issues with employees leaving and things like that. So it's kind of been one of those things where I've just been getting shot in the foot, and I've just been trying to bandage myself up as I go. So it's been a little bit of a tough season, but we're still adding on new customers. We're very picky with the jobs that we do because there's a lot of sketchy, weird houses in this area that you don't want to hurt yourself on. So we stay away from things like that. We stay away from anything where we have to use a ton of glue, because any jobs that we've had to use glue on, we get callbacks, and because the glue falls off and then we got to go back, and then it just wastes money. It costs us. So we pretty much just stick to basic jobs. We get a lot of calls for trees and things like that. We don't do big trees. So we've turned down thousands and thousands of dollars of revenue just for all these like little weird reasons that come along with Christmas lighting. Because then you also got to keep in mind that you're going to be coming back and taking everything down, and you're going to be storing it, and then you're also most likely going to be doing it next year. So it's like, is this something that you want? Is it going to be worth doing all this for this price? And are these people even going to be willing to pay it? Like, do you even want to do the job for that price? It's like, it's interesting. It's a very interesting business. You can make a lot of money and the margins are great, but it is tough. It's not as easy as it might seem.
Yeah, that makes sense. When do you start hanging Christmas lights?
So this is another area where I messed up this year. So we started hanging our past customers from last year. We started hanging their lights. I was thinking about doing it like the second week of October, which is like crazy early for the amount of customers that we had. I also didn't know how long it would take us to reinstall the lights because I didn't know like how our labeling process was and if it was going to work. Turns out it actually works very well, and it only took us like average an hour and a half to 2 hours to reinstall the lights on our new old customers' house. So we started, but we didn't end up starting second week of October. We started the third week of October. So third, fourth, and then the first week of November, we were pretty much just hanging past customers' lights. And we pretty much got all of them done. And then there was a weird interim period where it was like very slow because we finished all the past customers' lights. And then we weren't really getting that many new leads yet. So that's where like we started having some employee issues where we were slow, and that was that. So I kind of messed up all the timing with that. But we started, to come back to your question, in the third week of October. And then for next year, I know I could probably start maybe that last week or the first week of November.
So have there been any issues with customers ever giving you any pushback on putting them up too early?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So we, not as many as you'd expect, but definitely a few. Some of our customers were wanting them put up after Halloween, which that makes sense. But I was like pushing hard. I was like, listen, we got to get all of our past customers in before October, because once November hits, we got to have space for all the new customers. And little did I know, we wouldn't really be that busy with new customers until pretty much the week before Thanksgiving. And that week, so it was weird. It was last year. I remember it was like second week of November, and all the calls started coming in. This year, there was a beginning, like a weird influx of leads in the beginning, and then a long stretch of kind of just like it was very slow, and I don't know where all the leads were. Maybe we just didn't put out enough yard signs, and that's one thing that we definitely should have been doing right from the start. But I think our marketing efforts were also a little bit lackluster in the beginning. But yeah, and then a few of our other customers also wanted the lights put up like late November, like right before Thanksgiving, and I was like, listen, we can't really do that. If you want to get the discount, you're gonna have to do it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, the more I've been following you, and like when you started posting about Christmas lights, I had another local guy here in the tree service industry who said that that's what he did, and so I got really interested in that business model. And I'd never really thought about it before, and so I'm just curious, like, what the opportunity is there. But it sounds like you have a 2-month window, give or take, like from November till the end of it. Well, maybe I'm making a bad assumption there. What does December look like for you?
Yeah, so last year was pretty much 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, maybe like December. I know our last job was December 19th, but that week we didn't have any other jobs. So it was like 2 weeks before December is when we pretty much stopped. Before Christmas is when we stopped installing frequently. And then we had like one last minute job come up on the 19th there. But there's guys that have, a huge customer base. They've been doing this for a few years. They got a bunch of returning customers, and some guys that are starting in like September and October. Well, most people start in October. I know a lot of companies that start in September. But yeah, that's pretty much for new customers. I've noticed that people don't really start thinking about Christmas lights until definitely after Halloween, and then closer to Thanksgiving.
After Halloween and closer to Thanksgiving. Okay, so take me back to the beginning. How did you get your first Christmas light job?
I believe it was a yard sign, or maybe I'd have to. Yeah, it was either a yard sign. Yard signs kill. If you wanna get Christmas lighting jobs, just get 100 yard signs, put them out, and you'll be slammed. As long as you could sell, for the most part. But last year, what we did a little bit of Facebook ads. We had some Google ads, and then yard signs. That was pretty much the main marketing tactics that we used last year, and that's pretty much what we did this year as well. Yard signs, I've noticed, probably do the best. Honestly, definitely the best return on your money. So if you're getting 100 yard signs for $450, $4.50 per yard sign, and you can get anywhere from like, I mean, on 100 yard signs, it's infinite the amount of jobs that you can get. So like the return on that, which is going to be a couple $1,000s, is just infinite, as opposed to on Google where you're spending a couple $100s and maybe getting a few leads that might convert, might not. So,
okay, talk to me about your yard sign strategy. You get the yard signs.
Yeah.
You go put them out.
Yep.
You put them in every job that you do.
Yeah, for the most part. This year we haven't been too consistent with that because a lot of our jobs have been in like off-road areas where it's like very low traffic. So I'm like, it's not even worth it over here. So what we do is we just put them in high traffic areas where cars have to stop. Usually you see a lot of yard signs in these areas, especially around where I live. So these are going to be like intersections, highway exits, stop signs, stoplights, anywhere like that where there's a little bit of grass on the side, like public land that's not anyone's property. So you just throw it in there, and then you just put out a bunch of those. I think we've put out like a total of like 130 this year. I had one of my guys put out a bunch of yard signs. I don't think he put them in good areas from some of the pictures that he sent me. So I think at least 20 of them went to waste. But traffic is traffic.
So put out yard signs. You've got like a month window to do this, maybe a month and a half. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, probably about a month and a half.
And you generated $60,000 this year in revenue. How much have you spent on marketing?
That's going to be a tough one. I got to look into that. Definitely closer to, I'm probably going to say closer to five grand right now. Yeah, I got to check up on the Google ads, but we spent a decent amount on Google ads, Facebook ads, and then the yard signs. But
sounds like yard signs is the way to go, though. Like if you had to double down on one thing, just spend $450 on yard signs, go put them in high traffic intersections.
Yeah, 100%. And especially in areas like the South, like down South, I know Christmas lighting is a much bigger thing. I've started to realize that people in my area, I don't know what it is, there's not a lot of people getting Christmas lights done. I don't know if it's like a cultural thing or whatnot, but I know down South, it's like almost every other house I've heard has Christmas lights on it. So any Christmas light installers down there are just like, maybe their conversions are much higher than we have it here. I don't know, but the business model will work in pretty much any area, and you can make a great amount of money, but in some areas you might just have to work a little harder for it.
Cool. So tell me about the economics of the job itself. How long does it take you to do a job if you're doing it? How long does it take a crew to do a job if you have employees working either with you or running the job themselves?
Yeah, so any new job where we're cutting all the lights and nothing's pre-installed yet, it'll be around, the average is around 3 hours, and that will be and then of course that would be like an average of like $1,500 to $2,000. And then pretty much any job above that, any job closer to three grand will take us about 4 hours, sometimes 5.
Okay, and how many people do you have on it?
And that would just be me and one other guy. And then second year, you come back, You have all the lights already already cut and fitted. You have them labeled. All you got to do is just put them back up, and that'll take pretty much half the time.
So your first year is where you spend the time. Your second year is where you start making the money.
Yeah. So it's a bit of like a delayed profit kind of service, because year one, you're with all those new jobs is when you're going to have all those costs associated with the jobs. Year two, you're going to have a bunch of returning customers with pretty much no costs associated with that job. It's also going to take you way less time to do the job year two, or at least it should, because like I said, you're going to have the lights cut and fitted, labeled to the house. So then your profit margins start going up. And then any other new customers you get, it's going to be the same thing. It's just going to be a recurring process. And you get those recurring customers coming back. And then every year that you do it, it's just going to get easier. And, you start building up that recurring customer base. And that's like the beauty. That's the biggest positive I'd say about this business is like, if you have that returning customer base every year, that's like, okay, I'll have 100,000 coming in every year from Christmas lights. And the margins on that is going to be very high. It's like, it's sweet. It's like, I could just tackle another $100,000 to the wash business. And I know all these customers, I know all the jobs, and we're just going to go and bang them out. So that's like, getting the customers is the hard part. It's like going through all that, going through tons and tons of estimates and dealing with all these people's remarks on how expensive it is and all that crap. Is like, it's kind of like high barrier to entry in terms of like getting those customers. But once you get them, then you're just going to be making money on them for a while, or at least you should be. So that's kind of why it makes it worth it,
Do you market your Christmas light business services to your wash business customer list?
I do. We have sent out a few emails. We've landed a few jobs from our list. Actually, just as of right now, just one. And then I hit up an HOA guy, or he's like president of his HOA. So I hit him up. And I was like, hey, like if anyone in your HOA is looking to get some Christmas lights, we'd be happy to give you guys a discount. We got a job through that. So just between that and then an email I sent out, we did about $6,000 in revenue across 2 jobs. So, you got to really mine your database. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I like this business model because it seems like there's a lot of opportunity to put people on some sort of annual contract in the future.
Right. So we don't do any contracts or agreements like that, but because I found that this just kind of imposes more friction on the sales process, and like we don't need that, especially being like it's already so low converting. So we don't do anything like that. We just tell customers if they want to come back next year, it'll be 10% off, and that's that. And just between year 1 and year 2, we had a 92% returning rate, or 23 out of 25 people. I think that's 92%. So.
And do you market Christmas lights on your wash business website, or how do you operate this business?
Yes, we do have yeah, so this is like one of those big questions, like, oh, do you do 2 different businesses, whatever. I've thought about it, and this year was going to be a big deciding factor based on how this year goes. What am I going to do for next year? Am I going to differentiate it? Right now, we have a tab on our wash business website where it shows all of our services: house washing, roof washing, gutter cleaning, and then it also has Christmas lighting. So we are advertising it. It is on our website. It's on our Google listing. It's on our social medias. But I would maybe like to separate it into its own thing, but then you got to get all new. I'm pretty sure I'd have to get all new insurance, a new CRM, all this, and then have all these new costs associated with that business that are separate from this business. So that's why I've kind of just been keeping it under the same thing. But yeah, that's something I got to think about if I'd want to separate it or not. I don't think it's the biggest deal.
Yeah, it seems like, I don't think it is either. It seems like it would be, especially in the early years, an unnecessary cost. I mean, I always like to think about Google My Business, for example. Like if you had, like what's the name of your service area?
Westchester County.
Like what's the town? Like what's the main town?
Oh, like where we're based?
Yeah.
Pleasantville.
Pleasantville.
Yeah.
Like I always like to think about Google My Business. I feel like the businesses who can simplify, and I didn't do this with my service business. Like ours is Bear Claw, right? It has nothing to do. If any outsider was Googling that, they wouldn't know that like Bear Claw is one of the main prominent mountains here.
Mm-hmm.
But I always like to think the people who can like simplify it the most, Pleasantville Christmas lighting on Google, and then it just shows up on Google My Business, and then the customer clicks on that and it goes to pleasantvillechristmaslighting.com.
Yeah.
And it's like, we offer Christmas light services in Pleasantville. Like my head always goes to bigger picture and like offering more services.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard advice to state, because when other people are asking me like, what should I do on my name? I'm like, well, the best from a search perspective, purely from SEO, is like your local region plus your service offering.
Right.
But that's sometimes hard to do because you have this overarching business and you want to offer more services. It seems like an unnecessary cost in the early days.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, you figured out a way to go generate $60,000 in a month.
I wonder how much that would actually affect it, like having an SEO optimized name for your business. Like there's a power washing company in a few towns over it's like pressure washing near me. So it's like literally exactly what somebody would search up on Google. But
no, I really think that that's a big opportunity right there in itself.
Yeah.
Going and, I mean, in every single market right now, what's going to happen is more and more businesses are going to be coming online and become digitally present. So right now, all these old school baby boomer businesses that have market share, as they retire and as they shut down, there's going to be more and more people like you and I who start these local service-based businesses. And I think that could be an interesting opportunity to literally go buy domains like Pleasantville Pressure Washing, or
I've actually thought about that.
Pleasantville Christmas Lighting, in markets all across the U.S. Because eventually that's what it's going to be. Like, I feel like the easier you can make it for your customer, like we live in a world where people just search for whatever they want and they get whatever they want. It's what Amazon has created.
Yeah.
You get something 2 days later. And if you're not offering the same type of service from a service business perspective, then I think
you're not gonna
we're gonna fall behind, right? So it's just an interesting talking point or thought concept that I do believe that there's opportunity in every single local service business across every single local market throughout the U.S. So it'd be interesting to test that.
Yeah, I think it would be.
What is your website?
Preshclean.com. PRESHCLEAN.com.
That's a good domain.
See, I really fucked up with the name there because people get it so confused with Fresh Clean. They always think it's fresh. I'm like, nah, it's a P.
Dude.
It's been
like when you're talking about like when you tell people your email address over the phone.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. It's like, yo, it's a P.
Oh my gosh.
It's like I've seen so many different variations, like PH, F. Like I don't know. It's crazy.
So let's talk about that in this one right now, because this is an interesting topic, and I've had the same issue with
what names?
Like picking a name for your service business. I literally believe the simpler you can keep it and the most straightforward. I mean, if I go start another service-based business, like if I were to do Christmas lighting here, I would literally.
Yeah, what would be your process on it? If you were to start another business right now and you want it, like you need to come up with a name. I'm horrible at thinking of like this kind of stuff. I'm not very creative when it comes to just, I don't know, name picking or whatever. But what would be your process? I would honestly try to throw it into some like generator on Google and see what it would spit out. But
here's exactly what I would do. And here's exactly what I did. I helped a guy start a hot tub business last year. And I went and helped him get his first accounts. I like knew nothing about digital, was just a hot tub service provider. And we started coloradohottub.com. And then we built a website. We did 3 optimized SEO pages. And we did it about this time last year. And I can remember being in Florida at my in-laws' house over Christmas. And I was like helping him get the business up and off the ground. So I had my phone number on the listing. Dude, we were getting calls within like 2 weeks just from building a simple SEO optimized website,
really,
putting a Google My Business profile up and stating exactly what we did. And like we designed a custom or like a professionally designed logo. So I'm all about the branding, like creating your branding around what's going to resonate with your local market. And I believe it exists. Oh my gosh.
Location, service.
100%. I have thought so many times about changing my name to Colorado Fire Mitigation, but there is a guy down on the Front Range who has that name. But my point is like Bear Claw it's a brand, and I think there's value in building a brand that can resonate with people, and that takes time. But land services is general. I went the general route. Like I wanted to offer multiple different services. Right. But if I really, really, really wanted to start a business again and get leads quick, I would totally just pick my local service and then my local service area as the first piece of the name, and then the service I offer.
Like the main service.
And then you just build a website around that, put your optimized service pages, and this is another thing that I believe. The hack is putting your Google My Business profile in a professionally looking place. Because what happens when you're living in a service area and people Google pressure, let's take pressure washing, for example. If you're, this is just a theory I have, okay? If your Google My Business is literally out in the boondocks, one, you're not close to where the majority of people are actually searching for that service. 2, I think you immediately create this perception that you're this like boondocks small business owner. Whereas if you create a Google My Business profile and you go pay a co-working space, like $75 a month for a mailbox membership right in the heart of your downtown area.
Right. Yeah.
I've done that twice with 2 businesses.
Really?
And it works. I literally so I used to have an office space down in Denver. I met this cleaning entrepreneur, and he opened up this mindset to me, or brought this concept to me. He's like, Austin, having an office or virtual mailbox here, just a mailbox address, has generated us so much business. They grew to like $4 million a year in just commercial cleaning. But it was because his Google My Business profile was close to all the big apartment complexes. And whenever those property managers Googled cleaning service near me, his just popped up and he was getting the calls. And
it's all location relative.
It is. Yeah, 100%. And then if you have, it's like, for him, it was like, I don't remember what it was, 5280 Cleaning Services, which is like a very localized name. That's like the elevation that Denver sits at. I mean, just pick something that is relevant to your local market, and then tell your customers what you do. And I fight that all the time when I'm starting a new business, because I have this bigger vision where I'm like, I want to be able to offer tree removal, land clearing, and excavation. So I don't want to pigeon myself into just excavation.
Right.
But I do believe early on, if you can focus, the more you can focus, the better off you will be.
Definitely. And I've thought about getting other Google My Business listing locations so that we could easily target these other areas. Luckily, we're right in the middle of my service area. So like my county is like very, very large, and we're smack in the middle of it. So we can go up north, we can go down south, and east, west very, very easily. That also helps with our location targeting. But of course, most of our calls are centered around where our actual physical address is located. So if we also had one that was way in the north and then one that was also down south, I don't think our phone would ever stop ringing, even in the off season, even in the slow seasons. Like it really is like crazy how powerful the Google My Business listings are. And
it really is.
when you start getting reviews, you start optimizing it. You get that along with a good website and some backlinks, and it's like you're just going to supercharge your business. And that's the one thing that we did from the beginning was that we started getting reviews. Reviews are the biggest lever. They allow you to charge more. People see the reviews on your website and they can justify paying a higher price for your services as opposed to another guy who's just like a $99 yard sign dude that's got no online presence, nothing to show for it or show for his services. And it happens all the time. You know, we have customers telling us, yeah, we went with your services because you guys had the most reviews. You guys have great reviews. Everyone says great things about you guys. Like, you guys weren't the cheapest, but, you know, we know we're going to get a good job. I'm like, you do? There you go.
It's so crucial. I mean, I feel like we're going to talk about this multiple times, and we're just going to come back to it. That is the key ingredient. I mean, there's a million things that you got to do to get to the point to where you can ask for a 5-star review. But
right,
I do believe if you can just set that precedence with your team and with the customers, whenever you're doing a job, that, hey, we are committed to delivering 5-star service. Put it this way. I think if anybody out there is listening to this and you want to start a service-based business and you don't commit to delivering 5-star service, you might as well just not even do the business.
Exactly.
But if you're willing to commit to 5-star service and do whatever it takes to deliver that, then there is market share to be had in every single local market. Because, I mean, think about it. I'll use this example again. What do people do whenever they want to buy a product right now? They go to Amazon. What do people do whenever they want a service right now? They're going to Google.
They Google it.
And they're typing in and they're searching that.
Or they get a referral from friends.
That's right. And if Fresh Clean comes up and you got 5-star reviews, I'm sure you get it all the time because I do. It's like, hey, I called 3 people, or I looked at 3 people's websites. You guys have the best reviews. I want you guys to do the job. When is your schedule available?
Yep.
That's the best thing. Whenever you don't even have to quote it. You just show up and say, hey, here's my pricing. And they say, okay.
Your reviews will literally sell
right ahead
for you. They literally do.
Yeah.
But that's something, I know, like you said, we'll keep talking about this, and we could do a full episode on just like diving into Google My Business, getting reviews, how it looks from the beginning, getting your initial reviews and all that kind of stuff. I think that'd be very beneficial to most people because it's just something that, you know, it's taken our business from doing, you know, maybe $4,000 a month in our first month to over $40,000 months. So
I love it, man. All right. What else on Christmas lights? We need to wrap this episode up here.
Pretty much after what have we've talked about pretty much most of it. Biggest thing, one of the biggest tips I can give people when starting a Christmas lighting business is qualify your leads. You're going to get, like I said, no one understands how much this stuff actually costs. And you're going to be spending a lot of time mocking up estimates, drawing lines on houses or pictures of houses. And the best way to save your time and save a lot of headache is to qualify your leads. Have a minimum. So in the beginning, if you don't really know what your prices are going to be at, just kind of guess. We started with $7.99, I think, or $8.99. Once we kind of found out that our average job size was about $1,500, we went up to $9.99. So on that initial call, qualify your leads, tell them your minimum is $9.99. And then that will filter out many of the tire kickers that are expecting it to be like $150, $200. And that is like one of the biggest things that you could do to help make it a little easier on yourself, save your time, and avoid a lot of remarks from people about how expensive this is. But it's not a perfect system. You're still going to get a lot of people slipping through the cracks. but that's all right.
Just to clarify for the listeners, you're saying $999 and not $9.99 per foot, correct?
Right.
Perfect. I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, I do believe qualifying leads. I agree 100%. You know, we do that too now because we'll get calls now just to remove one tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people are looking for spend a couple $100 and it's just not worth, like with the amount of volume that we have and the size of jobs that we do. We state a minimum too. And so, yeah, I think there's a fair amount of getting to that point, right? In the early days, you probably just want to, I mean, there's some value to just getting your first job.
Yeah.
Right? But once you get established, I agree with that.
I would say in the beginning, keep your prices a little lower so you can get some jobs and get some experience under your belt. And then that goes a long, long way in helping you actually be able to sell the service. And then, you know, knowing what you can do and what you can't do and being able to kind of see things on the job that might be a potential issue or it might be a little tougher to do. It's in this service specifically, it's very important to get a few jobs under your belt. And that's just with anything. I think you understand this too. Like, it's way easier to sell something that you actually understand and actually believe in, you know? Like, it's hard to sell something that you've never done before, you've never done the service before. So like it gets a little tough in that regard. But once you get a few under your belt, then of course that makes everything a lot easier.
Sweet. Well, thanks for being on again, Julius.
Thanks for having me. I'm hyped to be on again and keep riffing it up. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about. We got a lot of big plans here, and I think this is going to help a lot of people. So I'm hyped.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're listening to this podcast, just let us know. Julius is active on Twitter. I'm active on Twitter. I'm at the owner op. Julius is at JM Venture Log, right?
Yep.
So reach out to us on Twitter and let us know what other topics you'd like us to cover. At a minimum, we're going to dive in together again on a collab episode on 5-star reviews because he and I both see eye to eye on that. But thanks again for joining. You've heard it from Julius, the man himself, who generated $60,000 this year with his Christmas light business on top of his pressure washing business. So if you haven't checked out the first episode with Julius, go back and listen to that episode where Julius shares how to start a pressure washing business, his story behind starting this business in college, and then also wrapping up this year at over $200,000 in revenue. That was a good episode. We've also got some good ones coming up here with Bodie, the dumpster rental guy from Twitter. He's going to talk all things dumpster rental, so make sure to stay tuned on that one. Don't forget, work hard, do your best, never settle for less. Thanks for joining the Owner Ops Podcast. We'll see you in the next one.